Most people have no idea that they are already living inside a financial prison. Not a prison guarded by walls or fences, but one constructed from rising costs, shrinking purchasing power, deepening dependence, and a silent architecture of economic pressure that tightens year after year. The most alarming part is that it feels normal. It feels like everyday life. You wake up, go to work, pay your bills, and assume this is simply how adulthood is supposed to feel. But it is not. What feels ordinary is in fact the slow tightening of a system designed to take more from you while giving you less control over your future. You are inside a cell you were never meant to notice, and the door is closing faster than anyone realizes. Stay with me, because once you see the structure of this prison, you will never look at your life, your money, or this economy the same way again. My name is Marcus Blackwell. I am not a financial advisor, but I study financial systems through the patterns and cycles history leaves behind, the ones most people notice only when it is far too late. My purpose is simple: to show you what is coming before it becomes unavoidable, and to help you stay financially unbreakable in a world growing more unstable by the day. I do not dramatize the future. I expose its structure. Because once you understand how this system truly works, the uncertainty you feel finally makes sense. These pressures are not personal failures. They are signals of a repeating cycle. If you want to stay ahead of it, subscribe and follow along. To understand how this prison was built, you must recognize that it did not appear suddenly. It took decades to construct, forming in layers so subtle they felt harmless, yet powerful enough to restrict your choices 1 inch at a time. And here is the part almost no one realizes. None of this was accidental. It was engineered through psychological conditioning. People were taught that debt is normal, that inflation is healthy, that perpetual work is the highest virtue. These beliefs created the perfect captive population. Convince people that debt is a tool, and they will chain themselves willingly. Normalize inflation, and you drain their wealth without resistance. Celebrate exhaustion, and you silence the minds capable of questioning the system. The most effective prison is not the one you fight against. It is the one you accept as ordinary life. And once you see how these layers were built, you will never look at your financial reality the same way again. Stay with me, because what comes next will shift your perspective permanently. The second layer was structural inflation. Prices did not spike suddenly. They crept upward year after year. Even now, with officials insisting the situation is stable, prices remain permanently higher. Food, housing, energy, insurance, transportation, everything essential costs more than it did just a few years ago. Inflation is not simply a rise in prices. It is the silent taxation of your life. It transfers wealth from those who earn to those who own. It forces people to run faster just to stay positioned where they were. And over time, this becomes a form of captivity. You cannot step away. You cannot slow down, because stopping means falling behind. The third layer was debt expansion. Governments borrowed heavily. Corporations borrowed to inflate their valuations. Consumers borrowed for homes, cars, education, emergencies, necessities, and increasingly for everyday survival. In today's economy, debt has become oxygen. But oxygen supplied by someone who controls the valve is never freedom. When a population depends on borrowed money, that population becomes easy to direct, easy to pressure, and easy to contain. History shows this repeatedly. Every late-stage economic system leans on debt to maintain the appearance of prosperity, and once the whole society is leveraged, the system owns the society. The fourth layer was asset inflation, the most deceptive layer of all. Stocks, real estate, and markets rose far faster than underlying productivity. People felt richer because the numbers on screens were larger, even though their purchasing power was shrinking. Wealth concentrated, not because the economy expanded meaningfully, but because financial engineering outpaced real growth. This created a two-tier world: those who could afford assets and those who were permanently priced out. And when too much wealth sits in too few hands, mobility collapses. That collapse creates confinement. The fifth layer is the one you are living in right now, financial compression. This is the moment when the walls come into view, when wages stagnate while prices rise, when rent consumes more than comfort allows, when saving becomes nearly impossible, when debt becomes permanent instead of temporary, when the average person feels they are working harder, earning less, and falling behind no matter how much effort they put in. This is not random hardship. This is structural confinement. Let me show you exactly what these walls look like so you can recognize them instantly. Wall 1 is the rising cost of living, the most visible and psychologically draining component of the financial prison. Essential goods and services have outpaced wages for years, and the gap accelerates during every inflation cycle. Officials often claim inflation is cooling, but cooling simply means prices are rising more slowly. They do not return to previous levels. That is the part most people forget. Once prices ratchet upward, they almost never fall back to where they were. The new level becomes the baseline, permanently reshaping what survival costs. That is why, even as headlines announce progress, families feel no relief. Their income is tethered, stable, predictable. Their expenses are not. Every year, the same paycheck buys less food, less stability, less comfort, less time. The solution begins with awareness. Track every recurring expense, eliminate silent drains, negotiate essentials wherever possible, and shift savings into vehicles that can keep pace with long-term price increases. You cannot control inflation, but you can stop it from ambushing you. Wall 2 is wage erosion. Even when wages rise nominally, they decline in real terms. A larger paycheck that buys less is not progress. It is illusion. And when wages cannot support upward mobility, that mobility disappears. A population without mobility is a population anchored in place. The solution lies in detaching your income from traditional wage growth. Elevate irreplaceable skills, position yourself for higher leverage work, and build secondary income streams insulated from wage stagnation. Mobility is no longer granted. It must be constructed. Wall 3 is debt immobility. Debt changes behavior. It reduces risk-taking, encourages compliance, limits decisions, and makes even rational people afraid to change direction. Millions today carry record levels of personal debt not because they are irresponsible, but because the cost structure of the economy demands borrowing. When a society needs debt to function, the society becomes a debtor class. The solution is strategic deleveraging. Target high-interest liabilities first, avoid lifestyle debt, and redirect freed cash flow into assets that strengthen autonomy instead of obligations that weaken it. Wall 4 is currency erosion, the quietest wall and the most dangerous. When a currency weakens, everything priced in that currency rises permanently. People lose purchasing power without understanding the mechanism behind the loss. Their labor becomes worth less in the future than it was in the past. This is not merely economic decay. It is structural dependence. The solution is to store part of your savings in assets that maintain value regardless of currency behavior. Diversified investments, essential skill income, small amounts of hard assets, and tools that generate revenue independent of monetary shifts. Wall 5 is systemic dependence. When people rely fully on the system for income, credit, stability, and protection, independence dissolves. The system gains the power to set the terms of their lives. The solution is diversification of reliance. Build personal networks. Create alternative revenue. Strengthen community ties. And develop self-sufficiency in small but meaningful ways. Dependence shrinks when resilience grows. But here is the critical truth. This prison was never meant to be recognized. It was meant to be absorbed gradually, quietly, invisibly. And the moment you see it, the moment you understand its mechanisms, is the moment you can escape. History proves that late-stage economic systems always follow the same trajectory. Rising opportunity in the early stage, widespread prosperity at the peak, overextension fueled by debt, erosion of trust in institutions, and finally compression as the system tightens to sustain itself. That is where we are right now. The tightening phase. and the signs are everywhere. Rising national debt costs, slowing global trust in the currency, housing that has become unattainable for younger generations, banks restricting credit, corporations cutting staff, and geopolitical alliances shifting in ways that weaken long-standing financial dominance. But here is the part most people miss. Systems tighten not because they are strong, but because they are weakening. A strong system offers freedom. A fragile one restricts it. The restrictions you feel today are signals of transition, not permanence. That means you are not facing the end of opportunity. You are facing the beginning of a new phase. And the people who understand this transition will be the ones who rise, while others feel the collapse. So how do you escape before the door closes completely? Let me show you the exits that still remain open, exits that history has proven effective time and time again. The first exit is reducing dependency on debt. Debt is the strongest lock in this system. The less you rely on it, the more control you have over your future. You do not need to eliminate all debt. You need to eliminate the debt that extracts more than it returns. The system cannot control the financially flexible. The second exit is acquiring assets that resist currency erosion. In late-stage cycles, currencies weaken, but real assets maintain value. You do not need massive wealth to begin. Small, consistent steps matter. Tangible assets, skills that generate revenue, and modest diversification protect you from the erosion of purchasing power. In a weakening system, real value becomes a shield. The third exit is skill elevation. Skills are the only asset class the system cannot inflate away. Skills that cannot be automated, outsourced, or easily replicated create independence. They create optionality. They create leverage. And leverage is freedom. The fourth exit is income diversification. A single income stream is a single point of failure. Even a small secondary source of income reduces vulnerability. Diversification is not a luxury. It is an escape route. The fifth exit is understanding the cycle itself. When you know what is coming, you can prepare before it arrives. You can position yourself ahead of the shift. Knowledge is not information. Knowledge is advantage. And now for the final truth. You are living inside a financial prison. The walls were built slowly, so silently and so gradually that most people never noticed when comfort turned into pressure, when stability turned into uncertainty, when opportunity turned into survival. The door is sliding shut, not with a dramatic slam, but with the quiet, predictable mechanics of a system entering its final stage. But understand this clearly. You are not powerless. You are not destined to remain inside these walls. You are standing at a rare moment in history, a moment when awareness becomes the key, when understanding becomes the exit, and when preparation becomes the difference between being contained by the transition or rising through it. Your power begins with clarity. Instead of reacting to headlines, study the underlying forces shaping them. Instead of hoping the system will stabilize, build your own stability through savings that resist erosion, income streams that reduce dependency, and skills that give you leverage instead of vulnerability. Small steps compound, reducing one high interest payment, learning one new skill, building one additional source of income, protecting one portion of your savings from inflation. The prison weakens every time you strengthen yourself. The truth is this: systems shift, currencies evolve, and cycles reset. But individuals who prepare early rise with every transition. You do not need to escape all at once. You only need to begin. The wise prepare quietly. The unprepared panic loudly. Which one you become will depend on what you do next. If you found value in this, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and stay ahead of the headlines.